back, ladies and gentlemen, and we have got a horrible economy, don't we? Inflation is surging. Gas prices are hitting new highs every day. Our stock market portfolio is plunging. Real estate is now endangered by rising interest rates. We have got a tough situation created by this administration. We're no longer energy independent. So what are we going to do? Well, some of the Democrats want to increase taxes. Unfortunately, among the American people, a new poll shows that economic pessimism is surging. Let's get some more information from the chief economist with the Small Business and Entrepreneurship Council, Ray Keating, who is joining us here in the Ringside Politics program on Real America's Voice. And Ray, good morning.
Morning. You're depressing me early in the morning.
Well, I'm just laying out the facts, and it's sort of reminiscent to me of the Jimmy Carter years when you had the misery index, when you had all the different economic problems, and the American people rejected him when he went to go before the voters for another term. I'm assuming that's going to happen, but can we even get to 2024, Ray?
Well, I'll tell you, you're absolutely right in terms of when you look at the numbers, they're just depressing. We haven't seen inflation like this, you're right, since the late 1970s, very early 1980s. We're in the midst of stagflation, slow growth, high inflation, where people are worried about slipping into an official recession. There are just many problems that we're being confronted by, and, you know, the wisdom of our elected officials in Washington is that they're looking at tax increases, more regulation, exactly the opposite of what we need.
You know, I think a lot of these problems started with the pandemic when we locked down the economy. I think that was a horrible move, and we've been trying to recover ever since, and I don't think we've recovered, Ray, from that.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can have that debate, right? But you're absolutely right. Bottom line is we're still struggling to get out of the pandemic economy, right? So, yep, we've got supply chain issues, and then we've got inflation, all the other things we just talked about here. So shouldn't we be seriously looking at, you know, for example, what these senators are kicking around, what they're calling a border adjustment tax on certain imported goods, and you know, is this the right answer? Do we really want to jack up costs for small businesses and consumers? You know, listen, I would say it's a bad idea at any moment in time, right, no matter where your economy is. But especially when we're looking at this current situation, how is this even on the agenda of anyone in Washington, D.C.? Quite frankly, we should be looking at the exact opposite. How do we incentivize entrepreneurs and investors and businesses?
Right.
That's the type of policies that we should be looking at.
And we did a story earlier in the broadcast about how on your summer vacation, if you go traveling, you might go to a destination where you can't enjoy the amenities because there's not enough people to work. You're going to have labor shortages, and that's sort of really been a problem ever since the pandemic. And shouldn't we stop paying people for not working?
Yeah, no, listen, I mean, however you want to phrase it, a tight labor market and so on. But yes, it is bizarre when you look at the numbers in terms of the number of people. And we're talking about working age people over here, like, you know, 25 to 54-year-olds, the prime working ages and the prime, you know, the chunk of our workforce. And they're still not back in terms of labor force participation back to where they were pre-pandemic, never mind where they were before the previous recession, the Great Recession. This has been a troubling trend, including among males, where you see them not in the labor force like they used to be in years past. So these are all issues that we're struggling with, that we should be looking at ways to, you know, incentivize people, to use that word again, because I'm an economist and I use that word all the time, rather than, you know, disincentivizing with higher taxes and increased costs.
And then we see the government responding to a lot of these problems by just throwing more money at it, trillions of dollars. I mean, the debt is soared. And isn't that, Ray, a contributing factor to this inflation that we're dealing with?
Yeah, well, it's certainly a contributing factor to the overall economic mess, okay? Because whenever you're talking about draining resources from the private sector, right, whether it's via taxes or borrowing, and handing it over to politicians to spend, that's never an economic plus, to say the least. We shouldn't let the Fed off the hook. You know, when we're talking about inflation, we're talking ultimately about, you know, monetary policy. The Fed shouldn't be let off the hook here. They've been running crazy, loose monetary policy, quite frankly, going back to the summer of 2008. So all of these things are kind of coming together in unfortunately, a perfect storm. So we really need to shift policy in a different direction, and we're just not doing it.
Now, under Donald Trump, and we only have about a minute, one of the best things about his administration was the big tax cut. And I think that led to a lot of economic growth. And now, as you said, we're looking at all these tax increases that are being proposed. Just the wrong idea at the wrong time.
Right. I mean, listen, tax relief is what we should be looking at. You're absolutely correct. We shouldn't be looking at tax increases. You've got this border adjustment tax, as I said, which is, you know, just a way in for more regulation of our economy via, you know, climate change, environmental issues, and so on. So that's a bad idea. And then you've got the administration talking about higher capital gains taxes and income taxes and corporate income taxes. It's
Ray,
just,
we got to roll,
but
keep sounding the alarm. We're going to do it here, and we appreciate the information. Thanks to all our great viewers. We'll be back with you tomorrow.